I'm here to tell you to stop feeding the fire, walk away, and watch the coal devour them. Have you ever seen a flame dance its brightest just before it dies out? That's what you become when you continuously sacrifice yourself for someone who doesn't feel the heat. They sit in the cold, unconcerned, while you sacrifice yourself to keep them warm today. I'm not here to hold your hand or paint you a romanticized picture of life. I'm here to tell you the truth, raw, unvarnished, and ugly. No one else will tell you the truth because it's easier for them to tell lies to convince you that loyalty exists, that love endures forever, and that the world is fair. What a joke. Take a close look at your surroundings. Everyone is so preoccupied with acting as though they care, that they are there for you and that they will never leave. They are deaf to your kindness and blind to your effort. They didn't just ignore you. They dismissed you as if you were just background noise in their chaos. You cared for them. You gave them more than just attention. You gave them your soul, and you wanted to hold them tight and protect them from the storms they wouldn't even acknowledge were coming. Iotic, self-absorbed world, you watched them turn away, their silence slicing through you like a blade. You thought if you just held on a little longer, they'd see it, see you, but they didn't. They won't, because people like that, they only notice what they've lost when it's gone. They'll stay blind until the light you provided vanishes, leaving them in a darkness they'll never know how to escape. And that's the cruel truth, isn't it? They don't even realize the value of the flame until the warmth is nothing but a memory. But you're done, aren't you? You've tried, you've bled, you've cried, and now it's time to stop. Not for them, not for revenge, but for you. Walking away isn't weakness. It's reclaiming your strength. It's choosing to no longer set yourself on fire for someone who wouldn't even hold a match for you. When you leave, leave quietly. Don't slam the door. Don't yell. Don't explain yourself. Just go. Let your absence speak the words. Your lips don't need to let your silence be the scream that echoes in their mind when they finally sit in the void you leave behind, because trust me, they'll feel it. Oh, they'll feel it like a stab to the chest, like a nightmare they can't escape, and you'll rise because every step you take away from them brings you one step closer to taking back your identity. Keep in mind that their incapacity to see your value defines them, not you. It's time for you to make your own decision. Say it with me. You were never the problem. You were the unopened gift. I'm finished. I am sufficient and free. Put those words in the comments section and make a self-promise to never again beg for someone to recognize what you have to offer. Let them sit in silence. Let them choke on the emptiness, and let you rise from the ashes stronger than before. I'm done. Let the world hear your silence. I am free enough to express it. I want to share with you a story that you may all too well know, one about giving everything to someone who never deserved it. It's the story of Alina, and you can find it on relationship forums among countless other heartbreak stories. But don't you dare imagine for a moment that her suffering is just another depressing tale. It's genuine, raw, and bleeds with a truth so scathing that it could cut you as well. For a while, it was everything, but promises are just words, and people are just liars with lovely tongues. Alina believed she had found love, but she knew she had a guy who made her laugh, called her beautiful, and promised her forever. Alina gave him everything, her time, energy, and trust. She stayed up at night to listen to his problems, calm his fears, and use all of her strength to keep him going. However, as her world crumbled, she reached out for his hand, only to find him distracted by scrolling through his phone and laughing at other people's jokes. She assumed it was just a phase, that people get busy and drift, but eventually they return. One day, Alina found the messages. He wasn't busy. He was somewhere else. Not one, not 24. Instead of confronting him, she pleaded, "Was it me? What did I do wrong? Please just talk to me." She gave him more strength with each tear that came out of her eyes, and he stared at her as though her suffering was insignificant. That's the point at which you either fall apart entirely or rise above the ashes. Alina decided to crumble for a while, continuing to tell herself that he would change. But one night, as she stared at her reflection in the mirror, it dawned on her suddenly that she no longer recognized herself. The woman looking back was a shadow, a ghost of someone who had once had dreams. After giving everything to someone who didn't even give a damn about her, ambition's fire left. But she didn't simply leave. She disappeared without leaving any messages, calls, or explanations. He first called casually, "Hey, I haven't seen you around." Then more urgently, "Can we talk? I miss you," but it was already too late. She moved out while he was at work, leaving no trace of herself behind. The silence was deafening for weeks before he noticed the emptiness. The beauty of silence is that it's more than simply the lack of words. It's a mirror that compels people to face their true selves, and believe me when I say that the image is awful. Alina was no longer playing games or waiting for an apology. She had moved on. Their silence, declaring, "You don't deserve me, and I don't need you," resonated louder than any argument they could have engaged in. It's haunting. It's everything they've tried to avoid seeing, and it's like chasing them, asking for explanations, and pleading for their love. Why would you ever give someone that much power over you? The moment you win, they get to tell themselves that they are stronger and more important than you. But then the game changes, and they are the ones left wondering what went wrong, why you left, and why you didn't fight for them. The irony is that they wanted you to fight, beg, and cry, and the only thing they can't handle is silence. They will watch you drown, and may even stand with their arms crossed, hoping you can pull yourself to safety on your own. But when you stop fighting and let the tide carry you somewhere else, they become afraid of what will happen when you're out of their control. You should stop fighting for them. Don't slam the door. Don't send a final text. Don't try to explain. Just leave them to sit in the silence and feel the weight of it, and let them wonder why their world feels so empty without you. They will return when the silence overwhelms them, but by then you'll have left, moved to a place where their words can no longer hurt you, and their indifference can no longer reach you. You'll be stronger, wiser, and free to express yourself. You deserve better. This is your moment to walk away, let your silence speak, and never look back. If you haven't already hit the like button, it will help this video reach others who might need a little help seeing this truth. Now, let's go even deeper into this. Do they really come back? Write, "I choose peace, I am done," in the comments below. Let it be your affirmation, your promise to yourself. Let those words be the first step in walking away and reclaiming your power now. Imagine this. You are standing in a desolate, dry desert, reaching out for a drop of water with your hands, but the person you are waiting on is holding the jug and choosing to quench your thirst. Now, picture yourself walking away, not because you don't need the water, but because you understand that quenching your thirst on your own terms is preferable to pleading for mercy, and as you fade into the distance, they suddenly notice the jug feels a little too heavy without you. That's when they come back. But here's the question. Do they really come back for you, or just to ease their guilt, their loneliness, their loss? People don't come back out of love. They come back out of convenience. They miss the comfort you gave the ego boost of being needed. They remember the warmth of your fire, but never the pain of how they snuffed it out when they come back. It's rarely because they've changed. It's because their world feels colder without you. They aren't returning to right their wrongs. They're returning because the silence you left behind has become deafening. They miss you, not because they love you, but because you made their life easier. Think about that. Think about the moments you stayed awake at night, sacrificing your peace for their comfort. When you walked away, they didn't lose a partner. They lost a cushion, a shield. They bear their burdens while they shrug off yours, returning not for reconciliation, but to test their ability to maintain control over you. Allow me to introduce you to Sarah. She was in love, but not addicted, and she gave her all to a man who viewed her as a potential partner. He left when it suited him, returned when things didn't work out elsewhere, and each time he found Sarah standing in the same spot, arms wide open, willing to forgive. He would say the right things, put on the right mask, and she would believe him. However, the situation remained unchanged, leading him to continue his departure until almost nothing was left. Then one day, Sarah changed her behavior. She stopped responding to his calls or texts, didn't show him the satisfaction of her attention, and simply left. Guess what? He returned, but this time she wasn't there to catch him. When he finally felt the absence of her unconditional love, it destroyed him. Not because he loved her, but because he lost the safety net he thought he'd always have. Indeed, they may return, but it won't be the person you were hoping for. They don't return with sincere regret or newfound respect. Instead, they return to see if they still have the power to control you. They return for closure. They never gave you answers. You've already moved on from the same fire that warms your soul. If you allow it to burn it to ashes, they don't deserve the fire you once gave so freely. They don't deserve to return to your life as if nothing had happened. Is their return a test of your maturity rather than a sign of affection? You're not a hotel, a temporary haven, or a safety net for someone who didn't value you when it mattered. If they return, let them find an empty space where you once stood. Let your absence be louder than their excuses. Let your silence be the mirror that forces them to face themselves, and if they truly care, let them in. Yes, they do, but the better question is whether you care. If they do, should you open the door for someone who only knocked because they were lonely, bored, or experiencing a sad moment? Say it with me. Don't allow their return to destroy the work you've done to move on. Instead, let them fight their own battles to heal, develop, and change. Leave it in the comments. I won't wait or bend. I'm enough. If you haven't hit the like button yet, it will help this video reach others who might need a little help seeing this truth. Now let's delve deeper into overcoming the emptiness that arises after you walk away. Let this declaration serve as your shield, for when they return, as they always do, you will know that you have grown stronger, gained wisdom, and feel free to share your thoughts below. I won't wait. I won't bend. I am enough. It feels liberating to walk away. The commotion they brought into your life is initially shut off like a door, but soon you are struck with quiet. The emptiness envelops you like a dense, oppressive cloud. I pose a question to you. What if I made a mistake? What if those actions were the best I could have done? What if I'm truly alone now? This is the trick, but it's also your salvation disguised as emptiness. Have you ever witnessed a forest that has been devastated by a wildfire? Despite the scorched ground, the smell of ash in the air, and the apparent death of everything beneath the surface, seeds sprout and life emerges, stronger and more resilient than before. That's you right now, staring at the ashes of what you left behind, but something strong is growing in you beneath that emptiness. Emptiness is a blank canvas, just waiting for you to paint your masterpiece, not nothingness. You feel empty because you gave all of yourself to someone who didn't deserve it. They depleted you and left you buzzing, and now that their craziness isn't distracting you, you're at last listening to your own thoughts. The purpose of walking away is to finally stop living for someone else and begin rediscovering who you are. Step 1 is to accept the silence. It's frightening to face yourself for the first time in a long time, isn't it? People have taught you that silence is your enemy, but that's not true. Silence isn't just the lack of sound. It's when clarity is present. It's the place where you begin to hear the things you've been too busy or scared to notice. It's the realization that all those restless nights and all that energy you wasted weren't love, but survival. After stopping fighting for someone who wasn't fighting for you, use the silence to gather yourself. Think of silence as the pause before the symphony begins. Use it to breathe, cry, or scream if necessary, but don't fill it with frantic calls or texts to the person you left behind. Step 2 is to replace the void. Emptiness only prevails if you allow it to remain empty. Instead, fill it with reminders of your value. Rekindle old interests. Take up a book you've never finished or begin a new endeavor. Go for a walk. Writing down your ideas or picking up a new skill are not merely diversions. They are strategies to recover the energy you expended. Imagine your life as a cup that you have spent so much time filling for others that you have forgotten how to fill it for yourself. Start small, add a drop at a time, and soon you will have filled it completely. Step 3. Stop romanticizing the past. Instead of missing them, you miss the person you imagined, the one who listened, cared, and made promises they never kept. Their real self ignored your needs, took you for granted, and made you feel invisible. Your cup will overflow, and they won't even recognize the person you've become. They didn't love you the way you deserved, and their absence isn't a loss. You can't heal by clinging to what shattered. You have to keep saying it until it becomes clear. It's a present, it's a fresh start, and an opportunity to create something free from deception and disappointment. The 4th step. Allow the suffering to change you. Pain is unavoidable. It will come in waves, sometimes mild, sometimes like a hurricane. Instead of resisting it, which merely intensifies the situation, allow it to sweep over you, dislodging the fragments of your identity that it once bound. Like forging steel, which must undergo fire to become unbreakable, pain is a sculptor chipping away the weak, broken pieces to show the strength underlying. That's what you're doing right now, turning into something that will never shatter. Step 5. Let the emptiness burn away the parts of you that settled for less than you deserved. They left you, but you gained yourself by breaking free from their chains, the pressure to be good enough, and the anguish of being ignored. Take a moment to look in the mirror and see the person there. Your return has been so long awaited that you forgot how to stand tall. Now is your chance to rebuild. Step 6. Remind yourself of this affirmation. I am not empty, I am rebuilding. I am not lost. I am discovering myself. I am enough. This will help you grow to rise from the ashes stronger and more brilliant than before. If you want to remind yourself and anyone else reading that walking away isn't the end, but rather the beginning of a life where you finally put yourself first, write it in the comments. Let it be the spark that ignites your transformation. Say it every time the silence feels overwhelming. Say it every time the past tries to pull you back. Right now I'm rebuilding. I am enough. It's the area where you can ultimately develop. Let it lead you rather than haunt you. Let it be the quiet that soothes you rather than the emptiness that shatters you. How to turn pain into freedom. Pain has a way of biting you, doesn't it? It snares you, suffocates you, and whispers in your ear. This is something you'll never get rid of. Get away from me. You find yourself trapped here, engulfed by all the harm they've inflicted upon you. Yet remember, pain is not your adversary. It serves as your foundation. The hammer and chisel in your hands don't break you when used properly. Think of a diamond, which isn't beautiful at first. It's just a piece of carbon buried under the weight of the earth, crushed by pressure, beaten by time. But that very crushing is what gives it its brilliance. It's your pain, and it's what's shaping you. preparing you to shine in a way they'll never understand when they walk away, betray you, and make you feel invisible. They thought they were breaking you, believing they'd crushed you so completely that you'd never rise again. But here's the truth. Every time they hurt you, they gave you the tools to set yourself free. The pain you experience is temporary. It's a message. They didn't take away your freedom. Instead, they showed you where to find it. It's not their validation or acceptance, but rather the moment you decide you've endured enough. Let me tell you about AA. It's your body, heart, and mind telling you to leave, walk away, and build something better. She had fallen deeply in love, the kind of love that gives you the impression that you have discovered your true love. For a time, everything seemed ideal, but then the excuses and falsehoods began to appear. She discovered one day that he was with someone else and wasn't merely wandering. She was unable to breathe, eat, or sleep without the weight of his betrayal crushing her. But something changed in the midst of her anguish, and she came to understand that the suffering wasn't her enemy, but rather her compass. Each tear she shed erased the version of herself that thought she needed him, and each restless night served as a reminder that she was worthy of better. She used every instance of betrayal as motivation to create a life in which she would never again feel inadequate. AA pain can be beautiful wings, not a prison. It forces you to face the parts of yourself that you've ignored, the pieces of you that you've let others trample on. It acts as a catalyst, transforming you from a wounded individual into an unstoppable force. So they thought they'd bury you, but they didn't realize you were a seed. She channeled her pain and allowed it to ignite a fire within her. She rebuilt her career, rekindled her passions, and reconnected with the friends she had neglected while trying to hold on to someone who wasn't worth it. It is time for her to grow, not for them to prove a point, but for you, the version of yourself that has been waiting in the shadows, pleading with you to set her free. The pain is heavy every time someone has hurt you, undervalued you, or taken you for granted. They weren't destroying you. They were planting you. When you finally take that first step on your own, you'll wonder why you ever allowed them to hold you back. The truth is, the pain you're experiencing now is a necessary price for achieving freedom. Yes, it's suffocating, but it's also temporary. The freedom it leads to is eternal. It's the kind of freedom that makes you realize you never needed them, that their love and approval were a crutch you could walk without. You must pay a price to transform from the person you were with them to the person you should be. Yes, it hurts and burns, but it's a fire that purifies and serves as a reminder that you are alive and capable of intense love. This much pain. Imagine the joy, peace and strength you could gain if you use it as a weapon and let it fuel your growth. Because every scar, every anguish and every sleepless night is evidence that you're still standing, and not just standing. Let your passion and purpose serve as a reminder of everything you've overcome that they believed would destroy you. I will stand, express my thoughts, and leave a comment. Pain is my strength, and freedom is my birthright. Let it be your promise to yourself that this pain will refine you, not define you. If they return, you will see that this pain was the beginning of your freedom and how to respond. So, the person who disregarded your value, played with your emotions, and treated your loyalty like it was disposable has decided to knock on your door once more. But don't let the kind words fool you. They're not coming back because they've changed. Rather, they're coming back because they can't handle the void you left behind. A dog always returns to its vomit, and that's what they're doing here. They're crawling back because they've run out of people to use, and they believe you're still the safe haven they abandoned. I've missed you. I've realized my mistakes. You're the only one who understands me, but remember this, the person who shattered your heart isn't capable of holding it together. Now they haven't grown, they haven't learned, they've just realized that no one else will give them what you gave so freely. Here's how you respond. You don't. You give them the same silence that haunted them into crawling back in the first place. That silence, it's not just an absence of words, it's a refusal to reopen the wounds they inflicted, because if they truly cared, they wouldn't have broken you to begin with. Imagine them standing in front of you, desperate and vulnerable, trying to piece together a narrative that paints them as the victim of their own mistakes. They'll tell you they've changed. They'll say they see your value now, but where was that realization when you needed them? Where was that respect when you were begging for their time, their attention, their love? It wasn't there, and it won't be there now. They're just afraid of. There's no need for their excuses or explanations because you created the emptiness you left behind. You have already made it through the worst of it. Allowing them to return now would be like reopening a wound that is finally beginning to heal. But if you must, let your words cut through their defenses like a blade. No, you do not miss me. Rather, you miss the version of me that tolerated your disrespect. You miss the convenience I provided in your life. I am no longer the person I was, and I am no longer her. When they return, remember the time it took for you to leave. Remember the nights you sobbed yourself to sleep. Remember the mornings you woke feeling. Don't let them ruin the time you spent putting yourself back together. Do not let them bring you back to the chaos you fought to avoid. Their regret isn't love. Rather, it's desperation. Redemption is manipulation, isn't it? Their excuses are meaningless. Wrapped in guilt, you owe them nothing, not even your attention, not a second chance, not a kind word. So how do you respond when they return? You let them drown in their own actions and don't let them sit in silence. You keep moving forward, stronger, wiser, and untouchable. Say it with me. I've moved on, I'm untouchable, and I owe them nothing. Let it be your anthem, your armor, and your declaration that no one gets to break you twice in a loyalty test. They have reappeared, professing to have undergone a transformation and appealing for a second opportunity. However, it's important to remember that words are meaningless and actions carry more weight than any apology. You've experienced past disappointments, so why would you trust them? This time, however, you don't let their attractiveness deceive you. Instead, you test their devotion and do it your way. Patterns, not promises, demonstrate devotion. Don't fall for their hurried declarations of love, or their claims that things will change on the first test. If they have really changed, they will have no trouble showing it over the course of weeks and months, not days. Keep an eye on their consistency. Do their actions match their words, or are they repeating the behaviors that broke you down? A loyal person knows they must earn their way back into your life. They won't just walk in and expect a red carpet. They handle your pain, bring up the lies, and don't change your schedule to accommodate their sudden desire to talk. Instead, maintain strong boundaries. Do they respect your time and space, or do they push demands and guilt-trip you for immediate forgiveness? The harsh reality is that loyalty is about integrity, not just keeping your word. Do they stay loyal to you when no one is looking, or only when it benefits them? Do they take responsibility for their actions, or do they avoid it by making excuses or even blaming you? A loyal person will sit in the discomfort of their mistakes without avoiding them. They'll face the mess they made and try to clean it up without shifting the blame onto you. Examine their behavior when they don't seem to be paying attention. Do they respect you in public and privately, or do they revert to old habits when you're not looking? The true test of devotion is who is there when things get tough. Finally, consider whether their presence makes you feel secure, or if it still causes you to doubt and worry. The loyalty test isn't just about them, it's about whether you think they deserve your trust. Again, you don't owe them anything, not another chance, forgiveness, vulnerability, and if they can't pass these tests, they don't deserve your life. Your instincts are rarely wrong, so if something feels off, it's probably because you trust yourself. Record it in the comments and allow it to serve as a reminder that you must earn trust instead of receiving it. We should only give the opportunity to re-establish boundaries to those who demonstrate their worth after passing the loyalty test. So they may have successfully passed your test, or at least you believe they have. But let's be clear about one thing. The VIP section is your life and your trust. They don't just walk in, they earn their seat one step at a time. The price of admission is boundaries. Fences don't keep people out. They show you who respects the gate. Never assume that passing the test gives them full access. This isn't a situation where they can fill their plate and then return for more. You've worked so hard to build your boundaries, and they're that fence that protects the peace you've created from the chaos you left behind. Your gate determines who enters and when, and if they can't respect that, they're not worth your time. Your first boundary time is strongest because they don't immediately access your heart just because they're back. Watch to see if they are trustworthy or if they revert to their old ways after appearing to support you. Deeds, not words, demonstrate loyalty over time, not in a day or a week. Second, they must earn your emotional energy to spend time with you. If they truly care, they will be willing to compromise. Otherwise, they will eventually reveal their true nature. Here's an example. Picture yourself as a lighthouse. Your light is steady and strong, a beacon in the storm. But that doesn't mean every ship gets to dock. Some ships are wrecks waiting to happen, and if you allow them in, they will destroy everything you've built. Let's be more specific. When they try to test you, what do? Perhaps they try to get more of your time than you're willing to give. Perhaps they try to guilt-trip you for not trusting them right away. Perhaps they even revert to their old manipulative behaviors, thinking that this time you will stand firm and say, "No, I'm not available right now. I need more time before I can trust you. You say I need this, and if you can't respect it, you don't belong here." What happens when they push back? When they say you're being too harsh or too distant, you know your boundaries are working. If they can't handle the rules, they weren't meant to play fair in the first place. Unfortunately, those who truly care about you will respect and not challenge your boundaries, seeing them as proof of your value rather than obstacles. In contrast, those who push, guilt, or manipulate you attempt to re-enter your life without merit, demonstrating to you why you initially required those boundaries. The people who should be in your life will view your boundaries as a challenge to achieve more, not as a rejection. Boundaries aren't just for controlling others, they're also for controlling yourself. Don't revert to old habits or lower the fence because they seem to have changed. If they prove they can't handle your boundaries, don't be afraid to walk away again. The second time will be easier because you'll know your value now and understand what it's like to keep your peace. Your boundaries aren't just rules, they're a declaration that says, "I deserve respect, I deserve loyalty, and I will not accept anything less." Say it with me. I protect my peace, I guard my worth, and I stand tall. Allow it to serve as your battle cry and a reminder that boundaries are about protecting yourself, not just about keeping people out. Leave a comment below that reads, "I protect my peace, I stand tall." Let them know that the only way to remain in your life is to respect the boundaries you've set. And if they can't let them go, you're not here to rebuild fences for people who keep breaking them. You're here to thrive. Walking away isn't just an act, it's a revolution. The moment you regain your value, set your boundaries, and silence the chaos they brought into your life, you've learned the beauty of silence, the power of your absence, and the strength of protecting your peace. Even though they might come back with remorse and unfulfilled promises, you now understand that you don't simply transfer your trust. Instead, you safeguard it, scrutinize it, and insist on earning it. The boundaries you set and the freedom you choose define your value, not their regret. Let their return serve as a reminder of how far you've come, not a reason to go back. Say it with me one last time. You're free. I protect my peace. Echo symbolizes who you are because it's the beginning of a life in which you arrive, walk away, stand up, and never turn around.